Tonight, another rise in energy bills. Fears the vulnerable will be the hardest hit. Can they afford to heat their homes this winter?
You just got to do it. I mean, it's money, and it's money that I've no got.
Also making the headlines, a delay in the deployment of body cams to police officers across the country is branded shambolic. IT issues are being blamed.
In sport, it's a big final 7 days in the transfer market, says Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers.
And I'm live from the Edinburgh Fringe as we enter the final weekend of festival fun.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. Charities working with people on low incomes say they'll be hit hard by rising gas and electricity prices. The energy cap will be increased from October, meaning the typical user will pay 10% more.
But there's a warning those in our poorest communities will struggle with higher charges. And there's concern too from older people. Many of them will no longer get help from the winter fuel payment. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
Under blue skies at the shops in Edinburgh's Broomhouse estate, a mural paints a sunny picture. But people here are already worried about the colder months to come and the effect on already squeezed budgets. This morning we met Hugh, who's 83. He told me he'll no longer receive the winter fuel payment, which is being scrapped for most pensioners.
It's not right, it's ridiculous.
And he says rising costs mean tough decisions.
I've cut back on my central heating now, yeah, definitely. You just got to do it. I mean, it's money, and it's money that I've no got.
The current price cap for the typical user of gas and electricity comes to £1,568 a year. From the 1st of October, that goes up to £1,717. That's a rise of 10%.
Of course, the cap is worked out on an average user, so if you use more energy, it will cost you more than that. While the prices are lower than in the darkest days of the last couple of years, they're still way higher than they were prior to the Ukraine war starting. And in places like this, things can be even tougher.
The community pantry and food bank here says it's busier than ever. It also provides help with energy costs for those who need it most.
So they'll come, they'll phone up, they'll get a referral, and we can issue them with £30 fuel vouchers to put in at their meters. Last year we did 3,333 vouchers, and because of Christmas coming up, the weather coming up, that's going to escalate. People around here live in fairly drafty houses, so a jump of electricity prices is massive for people like that.
When you look at the underlying reasons as to why we're seeing these pricing changes, it's all around the international gas market, and I'm afraid the British government, the British regulator, don't control that. So what's the way out of this? It is to support fully this government's ambition to get to 2030, to get to a net zero electricity system, and therefore not only is that good for the climate, that will make sure our costs are more stable and we're no longer on the gas merry-go-round.
It's likely to be years before that stabilisation takes full effect. In the meantime, people in vulnerable groups are being urged to make sure they're claiming everything they're eligible for. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
The body representing frontline police officers has described delays to the rollout of body-worn cameras as shambolic. The Scottish Police Federation says there are serious questions around why the service here remains the only one in the UK not to have the devices.
The cameras had been due to be up and running this summer. However, at a meeting of the Scottish Police Authority this week, it was confirmed they would not be widely used until spring next year. Here's our political correspondent, Ewan Petrie.
Watch the step, in you go.
Body-worn cameras have been pivotal in securing prosecutions following the recent riots in England. They had been due to be deployed here more widely this summer. But at a meeting of the Scottish Police Authority yesterday, it was confirmed that date has been pushed back.
We expect the devices to be deployed and active in spring 2025, for the first tranche of over 10,000 officers and staff, and then they will be equipped over the first 12 months.
The devices have already been used in Scotland in trials and during the COP26 conference in Glasgow 3 years ago. Police Scotland say an upgrade to their IT network is needed before the cameras can be introduced alongside a new digital evidence sharing system.
The way everything has came about, it would seem to anybody looking from the outside that it's quite shambolic in the sense that we're the only police service within the whole United Kingdom that doesn't have body-worn video, and serious questions have to be asked to why we're in this position. It's so important that frontline officers have body-worn video because it protects them from malicious complaints. It also protects the public if a police officer goes rogue.
It's almost 4 years since a senior lawyer recommended the use of cameras was accelerated. For the Chief Constable, their rollout remains a priority yet to be fulfilled. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
Ukrainians living in Scotland say they're hopeful of an end to the war next year on the eve of Ukrainian Independence Day. At a ceremony in Edinburgh this morning, those who fled following Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022 told STV News they remain positive Ukraine will be at peace for next year's celebrations.
It comes as Ukrainian forces gain territory in the Russian Kursk region and have now recaptured parts of Kharkiv in the northeast of Ukraine. Here's our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
For Ukrainians and Scots alike, it was a poignant ceremony at Edinburgh City Chambers this morning. A celebration of 33 years of Ukrainian independence, but also a reflection that 30 long months have passed since Russia's full-scale invasion. Natalia fled Kyiv for Poland and arrived in Scotland in April 2020. Her mum and sister quickly followed.
Of course, I know that those who are fighting, they would like much more support because they just want to kick the enemy outside of the country. And the recent events give more hope, but still it's hard to say when it happened.
Today, the First Minister pledged continued support for Ukrainians living here.
The Scottish Government will continue to work with our partners and with the Ukrainian community to make sure that we provide the support that's necessary.
Your government recently scrapped a scheme for free bus travel for refugees, so that doesn't sound like support.
Well, what we've got to do is make sure that we provide support where we can do that, and we've provided support through the under-22s bus scheme and the concession scheme for over 60s to people who are asylum seekers. We can't meet all the commitments that we make because of the financial pressures that we're under.
Celebrating Flag Day in Kyiv today, President Zelensky's troops have regained momentum after launching a shock offensive into Russia's Kursk region earlier this month. Today, they've also claimed to have recaptured parts of Kharkiv in the northeast. Sophia helps to run this Ukrainian club in Glasgow. Almost all of her family are still at home in Ukraine.
The problem is all men just now. All of them can go to the front line. This is the biggest problem. They can mobilize. For me, it's, I'm nervous every time and try to talk with my dad as much as I can. Even if you ask anyone when this war can finish, nobody can answer you.
Despite the horrors of war, for Ukrainians who found sanctuary here, it feels like a hopeful new chapter is starting. Laura Alderman, STV News.
The EIS union is to ballot its members after a full and final pay offer was made to college lecturers, which the union is recommending they accept. Bosses say the enhanced deal contains an extra £4.5 million in funding. Lecturers have gone on strike several times during the long-running pay dispute, which dates back to 2022. The union had already called off planned strike action for next week.
A man extradited from Scotland to the United States after faking his death has been told a rape case against him in Utah will proceed to the next stage.
After his arrest in a Glasgow hospital, Nicholas Rossi spent more than 2 years fighting attempts by US authorities to have him sent back to face 2 separate charges. His latest hearing had another plot twist. Here's our chief reporter, Sharon Frew.
As he did in Scotland's, Nicholas Rossi appeared before a judge in Salt Lake City in a wheelchair and attached to oxygen. The 36-year-old continues to insist he is someone else.
All right, so Mr. Rossi? Still Mr. Knight?
To be called Mr. Knight.
Okay.
Nicholas Rossi was arrested in 2021 under an international arrest warrant while a COVID patient in a Glasgow hospital. He claims to be the victim of mistaken identity, but he lost an extradition appeal and was finally returned to the United States in January. Rossi is charged with 2 counts of rape, a first-degree felony, one in Utah County and another in the city of Orem. A former detective who led the Orem investigation told the court an alleged victim of sexual assault came forward after seeing international media attention surrounding the case.
She had had a relationship with the individual on the news media named Nicholas Rossi or Nicholas Aliverian.
When prosecutors tried to clarify the issue of Rossi's identity, the defence quickly intervened.
What was his name at birth?
Your Honour, just before we go further, defence stipulates to identity. So
I'm sorry?
defence stipulates to identity.
Defense is stipulating to identity in this case?
Yes, for the purposes of preliminary hearing, for the purposes of this case, defence stipulates to identity.
It was a statement that appeared to catch the prosecutor by surprise. The judge went on to rule enough evidence had been presented to warrant a jury trial.
I find and conclude that the state has met its burden.
After every Scottish court appearance, Rossi repeatedly asked his legal team to apply for bail. In Salt Lake City, a judge was asked to consider a similar request. A hearing on that matter is fixed for October, before he faces a jury. Sharon Prue, STV News.
Rangers have submitted an application to install safety nets between home and away supporters at Ibrox Stadium for high-risk football games. The netting would be added in the corner of the Broomloan and Govan stands. The club is currently carrying out construction work on the Copeland Road stand. Medical professionals have gathered at George Square in a show of solidarity with Indian women. It was one of 14 vigils across the UK, 2 weeks on from the rape and murder of a trainee doctor in Kolkata. The incident sparked mass outrage across India, leading to the largest doctor strike the country has ever seen. Vidushi Tiwari reports.
Standing in solidarity, thousands of miles away, these Indian medics are angry and grieving the loss of one of their own.
It's almost like we have normalized rape in our country, and even in this day and age, we cannot send our girls safely anywhere.
It's extremely shocking, it's very painful.
It is absolutely devastating.
Because it's a failure of the system and not just individuals, and that's what we're trying to hint at.
It's inside this hospital in Kolkata that the 31-year-old's body was found. It's believed she was attacked as she rested during a long shift. The incident sparked a new wave of anger across India and the largest doctor strikes the country has ever seen. This isn't the first time a case like this has shocked India. In 2012, the gang rape and murder of a young woman on a New Delhi bus prompted the government to enact tougher laws against sexual violence. However, latest available data shows authorities are still recording around 90 rapes per day on average. And that's just the ones reported to police. With 94% of attacks going unreported, it remains difficult to highlight the true scale of the issue.
There is an institutional and government failure to account for the fact that women occupy public spaces and they need to be provided for. There's also the feeling that women and girls have when they report an instance like this, that the first thing that'll happen is that they'll be blamed and that their actions will be looked upon as having brought this upon themselves.
As a mom, for my daughter, it has to be a safer place. I want her to grow up without being scared, without having to think what should I be wearing so that the others don't get my attention. I don't want that. I want her to live free.
India celebrated its 77th Independence Day last week, but its women continue to fight for theirs, with these medics standing by their side. Vidushi Tiwari, STV News in Glasgow.
Now, Rahman is here with the sport and a full weekend to look forward to, Rahman.
Absolutely, John.
STV Sport,
Sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
Good evening. Brendan Rodgers admits the final 7 days of this transfer window are big for Celtic and understands some fans' frustrations over the club's business so far. Rodgers also says he's not surprised Manchester City have been linked with a move for Kyogo Furuhashi, but says they haven't received an approach from the English Premier League champions. Here's Ronnie Charters.
Preparing for the trip to St Mirren, it's been quite the week of transfer speculation at Celtic for two of their top players. Matt O'Reilly, with Brighton the latest team to bid for the midfielder, and Kyogo, claimed to be on the radar of Manchester City.
I'm not surprised. He's a wonderful player. Just obviously looking at all the links and gossip and speculation this week, I thought I was preparing for a five-a-side game at the weekend. We're going to lose all these players, but no, there's nothing. It's especially over this summer period, but especially going into the last week of the market, 10 days of the market, there's always going to be that speculation around it.
In terms of incomings, the Celtic manager revealed there is nothing imminent. With 4 players in the door so far, a growing number of supporters are growing frustrated at the lack of transfers.
Totally understand. Totally get it. Their ideas is the same as mine. We want to improve. This is a football club with an incredible potential. We got to have a high bar, so we're not just a team. And I don't want us to be a club and a team that just participates, goes in and takes the money and comes back out and is happy with just domestic success. You know, the benchmark for me is much higher than that.
Again, I think everybody wants the club to keep moving forward. The one thing we know about modern day transfer windows is it's tough to get business done. Especially when everyone sees that you're cash rich and everything's going well and you're doing well, then prices get inflated, all these things start to happen. So it's just patience, and you know, we've got to trust the guys upstairs to make the right calls, to make the business happen that everybody wants to happen.
Elsewhere, Rodgers confirmed defender Gustav Lagerbielke is likely to leave the club before the deadline. Ronnie Charters, STV Sport.
Philippe Clement says Rangers' game against Ross County tomorrow could be their final league match at Hampden before returning to Ibrox next month. The club have been playing at the National Stadium due to construction delays at their own ground. Meanwhile, Ben Davies is set to leave Rangers and join Birmingham City on a season-long loan deal.
People are working really hard to make it as fast as possible. So there's a possibility in that way, but not certainty. Everybody's been working really hard for that, to make it as fast as possible. And like I said, you don't have everything in your own hands, or a lot of things not, in a case like that. But all the club has been pushing to make this transformation period as short as possible.
Well, next up for Hearts is a trip to Motherwell, and Fir Park boss Stuart Kettlewell has dismissed any suggestion Stephen Naismith may prioritise the second leg against Victoria Pilsen rather than their Premiership clash. Kettlewell, who is still searching for his first league win this season, insists the European game will have no bearing on Sunday's match.
That's not how football clubs operate. That's not what they do. They don't start to prioritise Thursday over Sunday. Thursday will come, that will be there. But what they want to do, and what every team wants to do, is they want to go into it with a victory, and they want to go in with a performance. And again, I can probably speak for the entire country and the top flight in Scotland, that's what you want to do.
News from Hibs, and David Gray wants his players to accentuate the positives and learn from their mistakes after recording 3 straight defeats. An opening day loss to St Mirren, followed by back-to-back defeats to Celtic, sees Hibs without a Premiership point and out of the League Cup. But Gray expects a positive reaction as they host Dundee at Easter Road tomorrow.
It's been a tough start, made tougher for ourselves, but at the same time, there's a lot of positives. I say it a lot. The squad's taking shape all the time now. The players are getting spending more time with myself and the staff and the way we want to work. I'm delighted with where everybody is physically. Everyone's getting there as well. So I'm really looking forward to the game now.
Some golf news before I go, and world number 1 Nelly Korda holds a 3-shot lead on day 2 of the Women's Open at St Andrews. That, folks, is all your sport tonight. Have a great weekend. See you again next week.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
Well, as Rahman said, it's the weekend, so let's see how the weather's looking. Here's Sean with the forecast.
A spell of wows will gradually settle into a scattering of traditional tapas. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. We had some rain from Storm Lillian earlier on today, more so across southern parts, South Ayrshire and also South Lanarkshire, the borders, Dumfries and Galloway. We avoided the worst, thankfully, this time across Renfrewshire, Inverclyde, Argyll and Bute and the Highlands, where we've had an awful lot of rain this week. It is going to remain quite showery and cool this weekend. Some big changes though next week, we'll get to that in a wee second. Staying quite showery through this evening and tonight, frequent showers especially across northwestern parts. Quite a cool one as well, temperatures down to lows of about 7 or 8 degrees. Now tomorrow it's going to be another day of sunshine and showers, lots of them around, especially during the first half of the day. Expect later on in the afternoon into the evening, the showers then starting to space themselves out a wee bit more, so we should get a lot of dry weather with sunshine to end the day, away from the Highlands and Argyll and Bute, where they will remain frequent even into the evening. Look at these temperatures, 14, 16 degrees Celsius, shocking stuff for August. So on the cool side, especially in the breezy conditions and especially in those passing showers as well. Lots of showers around on Sunday, still on the cool side as well, still breezy as well. 15 degrees. We could get a longer spell of rain coming through for a time, so quite wet during Sunday. Next week though, high pressure on the way, a southerly airflow, and look at those temperatures, above average. My goodness, big shock from 14, 15 degrees. We could be into the low to mid-20s, peaking Tuesday, Wednesday, and again, possibly next weekend. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Now, it's the final weekend of this year's Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Thousands of people are expected to head to the capital to soak up the atmosphere of the final few days. Well, Laura Boyd is at George Street Assembly Village.
Well, yes, it's the very last weekend of the Fringe. It finishes officially on Monday, which means Edinburgh is going to be packed over the coming days as everyone comes along to soak up the last of the atmosphere. And what an atmosphere it is. I mean, we've got singing and dancing chickens, a choir and Rescue Me comedian Ray Bradshaw. Ray, how's the Fringe been for you?
It's peaked right now. I feel like I'm in the worst stag do I've ever been on. What is happening, by the way?
It's brilliant. It's the magic of the Fringe.
Yeah.
And you've got quite a few shows going on.
Yeah, I've done like 2 different shows, work in progress, sign language shows. I've spoken in front of camera in front of chickens in a choir. It's normal Fringe, isn't it? It's just a Friday.
Is this the highlight of your career?
I'd say no, but if it was, it'd be worrying, wouldn't it? But it's up there. It's definitely up there, Laura, yeah.
And a special thing about your shows, you always have a BSL interpreter, don't you?
Yeah. So my mum and dad are deaf, so I always sign them. It must be hard to sign this, I'd imagine. But yeah, so we did some signed shows, and it's so much fun having deaf audience members. It just makes it more accessible and better.
And what is it that you love about the Fringe?
Going home sometimes.
You can't say that!
Sometimes that's the truth. The shows are great, getting to see people you don't usually get to see, and things like this, because like if I come here this week, next week and this is on, you'll be having a breakdown, but this is just normal today, isn't it?
It is normal today, it's normal all this weekend. We'll let you go off and enjoy your final few shows. And well, we've been finding out what else people have been loving about the Fringe.
I love all the culture, all the people, the food, the atmosphere, just everything about it really, all the acts and shows. It's amazing.
What about you? What do you enjoy?
I just enjoy the company and being here and getting a day off my work.
He came all the way from Bristol.
For the Fringe.
First weekend in Scotland, we've took him here, he's moving to Scotland.
I think the Fringe is amazing.
Well, a show that you can catch this final weekend is Out of the Blue. Now, they have been coming for 20 years. Angus, you probably weren't born 20 years ago, but you are part of this group. This is your 3rd year at the Fringe. What can people see from you guys?
Well, they can see a really fun performance that's suitable for everyone. Performing is what keeps us coming back. This is a hobby for most of us. And as well, we're supporting Helen and Douglas House, who are the world's first children's hospice, and they're founded in Oxford, where we're all studying.
Well, an amazing cause. Out of the Blue, it is over to you. Enjoy.
Stop calling, I don't wanna talk anymore. I left my head and my heart on the dance floor. Stop telephoning me. I'm kinda busy. Stop telephoning me. Most incredibly, it's your boy Nick. I'm faster.
Am I imagining that? Well, there were definitely chickens there earlier.
John, I don't know what you're talking about, but there were definitely musicians and a comedian.
How do we follow that?
I don't think we can, John, so let's leave it there. Have a great weekend, everyone. Good night.
Good night.